Today we've got the top 12 best thin knives for the money. I'm going to go ahead and go through them. There's a couple honorable mentions. In order to qualify, I'm actually going to disqualify a lot of knives that you guys think probably are already thin. For example, the Delica. So in order for it to qualify, I'm going to say it has to be thinner than the Delica. Why do I have this Medford Express here? Well, I have the Medford Black card, first of all, knife following at some point. But I thought it was really funny to include, a brand known for super thick knives in the thin knife video. So anyway, we have, so all these knives that you see here are knives that are thicker than what we're going to allow because they're at least as thick as the Delica. I don't have my Bugout here with me or bailout or anything else, but I will say that the handle thickness on the Delica is 0.40 inches, and the Bugout is 0.42 inches, which means it's 20 thousandths thicker, and so that's not a big difference. I think the Elementum right here, this is actually also another one. So the Elementum is even a little bit thicker than the Delica, as you can see, and this one is 0.43 inches, so 30 thousandths thicker. So you can see that the Bugout is in between here and there for size reference. Okay, let's go ahead and clear some of these out, but I do want to show you real quick just how thick some of these are that you may not consider. So these are about the same thickness, with the iridium being a little bit thicker. This is the famous Walmart knife. This is, and by the way, the actual famous Walmart knife is super thick. So this is the Pyrite. You can see that's thinner, right? The Merit is actually about the same. It's a little bit thicker actually than the Pyrite. So the Merit, which has a very, very thin blade, this is like 70 thousandths or something like that. Despite the thin blade, still relatively thick, especially you'll see it against the Delica here, right? The Tenacious, still super thick, right? And the Praxis. So you can see the Delica is actually on the smaller end of what you would say are your standard EDC knives. Now, I will say that a lot of these, you'll notice a theme here. A lot of them end up being lockbacks because that helps it stay thin. So liner lock, axis lock, right? Or I should say axis style lock. Liner lock, button lock. So all those different locks, lock types make it pretty thick. You have to have a certain amount of thickness on them. I'll also note here just that this is the CRKT Scribe. This is discontinued, but this one is, and by the way, all the knives that I can link below, I will link below. So please use those. It helps support the channel. But this CRKT Scribe is a stand-in. It's not just a good option on a thin blade, but it's a stand-in for fixed blades in general, which tend to be a little bit more forgiving in what you can do with them. And I'll go ahead and show this one too. This is I forget the name of this, but I think it's the OSS dagger, right? So you can see fixed blades can be relatively thin when as an option. Also, multi-tools. This is the Alox Cadet from Victorinox. Now again, I'm not going to qualify that. And by the way, I'll just show you real quick the thickness. Okay, so those are thinner than the Delica. And we'll keep the Delica as a comparison knife. So I'm not going to include multi-tools, not going to include fixed blades in this list, but just know that those are options. That's why there was the stand-in. And now number 12. This is the Boer Atlas, and this is one of the thinnest knives on the list. This is kind of a folded steel this is a folded steel overlay with a spring here, and you can see a back spring, and it's non-locking, slip joint style. This thing is pretty cheap though. It's about 20. I think they originally sold like $29 or something. And you may be able to still get it, obviously price link below, to the extent these are still available. I think they are still available, but super, super thin. Check out how thin this is. One of the thinnest knives on the list. Right there. So this thing is nothing. This is a good backup, or second knife that you can hand to somebody if they need a knife. and despite the fact that it's steel, this is a folded steel, it is actually pretty light. Number 11, this is the Buck 501 Squire. Whoops, put that in upside down. Buck 501 Squire, and obviously there's no pocket clip on this one. There is a pocket clip on the last one, by the way, but no pocket clip on this one. This is a lot of knife for the handle, for things this size, I should say. Obviously you can pack more in there. The back spring only allows for so much, or back lock, I should say. But this is a great option, especially in the budget realm, for being a little classy, and you can choose to just throw it in the bottom of your pocket or in a sheath. Obviously, if you throw it in a pocket, it's going to be a little dinged up like this one is when it bangs around your keys and other stuff. So it can be closed one-handed. Just be careful. Don't try this at home type of thing, right? And this can be closed one-handed too. Obviously, know what you're doing before you do that. Okay. Oh, let me show it up against the Delica. So this one's only slightly smaller than Delica. Number 10 is the Kershaw Dividend. So this is mostly on this list because I think it's the same size as the Leak. Yeah, it's about the same size as the Leak. It's on this list because of how much blade it packs in for how thin it is. If you go look at the comparison to the Delica, you can see handle-wise, it's only slightly smaller than the Delica, but it does pack in quite a bit of blade. Here you can see the difference in blade length. So Kershaw Dividend, great option there. And by the way, this is a second with a broken spring. That's why it's not flipping out. All right, next up we got the Spyderco Chaperel. You guys had to know this was on the list. This one is a discontinued version of the Chaperel, but there's still plenty of versions available. They don't have titanium anymore on them, but they have other items. This is a very, very thin knife. Great box cutter, laser-like box cutter. And you can see the comparison here. Great thin knife. Next up, we are number 8. You guys had to know it was on this list, but I'm not sure if you knew it was this low. Benchmade Narrows. I actually do really like this. It's a lot of fun and fidgety. It's just an odd shape to have such a thick, or tall handle, I should say, and such a thin knife. The fact that they were able to cram an axis lock into this size, especially on titanium, is amazing. So the engineering on this is fantastic. It is really expensive. It's over $500. I think they might even be approaching 600 now. They were originally like 5 something when they came out. Obviously you can see they pack quite a bit of blade in that package, and this is one of the most fidgety fun knives on this list. And it comes in DLC as well. I have the DLC version. Next up, we got the Real Steel Luna, back to the budget. This comes in several varieties, from titanium and with a thumb disc, or a thumb stud, all the way down to, and they have frame lock versions and everything, down to the slip joint. Now the slip joint version is going to be, I believe, the thinnest, and this G10 version is super light and is also like $30. So this is an excellent version. I actually think it's very fidgety for a slip joint. Just notice that it has a 3/4 stop instead of a half stop, and other than that, it's great. Nice thin blade. Go ahead and see the blade stock against here. Just an overall great value. Next up, we got the Cold Steel Airite. This is nice large blade. Great alternative if you're looking for a budget version of a knife that's similar in size to the Narrows, right? And you can see it's not as thin as the Narrows, but it is slightly thinner than the Delica. And these, I think, are on Amazon, are going for like $50 now. So even over the years, it's still a great value. The steel on it is very, very adequate for the money. A lot of people may not be familiar with OS 10A, but it's totally good for the price range. Next up, we are down to the top 5, and we're going with the Buck Spitfire. Now, this is slightly thinner than the Delica, like ever so slightly thinner. And that's mainly because of metal to plastic. But I will say I do prefer the aluminum scales and the feel of the Spitfire to the Delica. So if you want something that's Delica-like with a slightly smaller, very, very slightly thinner profile, then I would definitely look into this. Obviously, this is American made, whereas this is an American brand that's made in Seki City, Japan, as you see there. So that's also a bonus, and you can get and this is a more expensive version of the Spitfire, but you can get the Spitfire for around $50, and there's a mini version as well. Next up is the Vosteed Parallel. This thing came out and kind of took everyone by storm. This is titanium, which means it is super light. It has a nice wire clip on it. This is a discontinued version in this color, and it's really comparable to the Narrows. The Narrows is the one that it's closest to. Obviously, it has the axis lock, or the axis style lock. The crossbar locks are good on both of these. A little bit different because you can see the step, the sort of slant step on that one, and then this is more of your traditional. I will say that this one functions much better because as thin as this is, it feels like you're getting some rotation back and forth from the crossbar lock in there, so it's not as stable as this one. This one feels very, very stable, but obviously you're looking at several $100s price difference. So when that comes in, you know, the craftsmanship on the Benchmade is much better. The fact that it's American made makes a difference. The milling here is much more refined, but at the end of the day, obviously there's a major, major price difference. And there's different steels as well. The Benchmade is rocking M390, and this one has S35VN. Both of them are fully adequate. Like I said, this is just an amazing value. Next up is the Bear. That is how you say it. It's named after Bear County, Bexar. This is from Tactile Knives. This is a slip joint, and it is super thin despite the profile here. You can see it against the Atlas. So while it's not the thinnest knife on this list, it is very, very thin. You can see it against the Delica. Still much, much thinner than the Delica, right? And then let's show it just against the Narrows. So you can see also how thin the Narrows is. It is so thin that I think it's actually even a little thinner than this. Oh no, the Bear's a little bit thinner. But the blade on here is nice and thin as well. And this is just extremely well made. One of the nicest, it's definitely the nicest thing that I've ever gotten from Tactile. And they generally have pretty good quality, but there's plenty of things here. Like this is a nicer quality than this, for example. And these are not really comparable because they're just completely different knives, but the hand feel on this one is much better. So, and I think you can see the finishing on the actual knife is much better, although the engineering on this one is much more interesting and complex. Next up, this is number 2. We have the Waypoint. So I'm including this here, the Quiet Carry Waypoint, just because this is one of the most amazing knives on the market, waterproof. You know, with respect to rust, it's got Van Eyck steel, which is not going to rust on you. It's rust-proof, basically. The internals are all rust-proof. This is made to go in the water. Everything about this is completely refined, super thin, but it is ever so slightly, like it's the slightest difference less than the Delica. So they really got nice into a small package here. It's titanium, and it just feels fantastic. There's a couple versions of this available, and this is definitely one of the most well-made knives for the price in my entire collection. So I highly recommend, if you haven't checked out Quiet Carry, that you check them out. Number 1. What could be number 1? So those of you who know me, Patreon members and everything, you probably know, but the rest of you probably have no idea, and it's not something you would necessarily expect. So it is another cold steel, the Cold Steel FM1, and this is an Atlas lock, which is a much more interesting lock than it's hard to do this under the camera. Much more interesting lock than a regular back lock, and it's very akin to a shark lock on a Demco, but much further down. So this is just a very very fidgety knife, and the size is perfect. So whereas the Narrows, it's only slightly thicker than the Narrows, as you can see there, thinner than the Delica, and despite the fact that it's slightly thicker, it just has a similar profile. This is by far the better knife when it comes to just overall hand feel. This feels like it belongs. Like I said, the hand feel on this one is because of the profile on the handle height is a little odd. Because this is slightly thicker and just has a more neutral handle, it actually fits way better. The profile of the blade and the geometry of the blade is much better, comes up to a much higher spot here on the grind and on the bevel. So yeah, it just ends up being an overall much more enjoyable knife. The pocket clip is a little bit better, I think, on the cold steel, although they're pretty similar. So that is the list here. This one is a little bit harder to get. I think they were made in much smaller numbers. But if you can get your hands on one of these, this is one of my favorite, it is my favorite thin knife in my collection. And actually the blade itself, you can see here, is considerably thick. So if you're looking for a thinner blade, go with the Waypoint. But if you're looking for something stout, but that actually has a thin profile, then go with the cold steel. And that makes sense for cold steel because that's their MO. I hope this was a helpful video for you guys, and that you enjoyed it. If you have if I missed any knives that you think should have made the list them below. I'm sure some people are going to have some comments on it, but definitely comment below if you have one that you want me to check out. Maybe throw somewhere on the list. Thank you. Also, if you haven't subscribed, click that button below.